And I noticed in my rearview mirror that a semi was coming straight behind me, and it was coming extremely fast. I just braced myself for the impact. There was about 2 seconds of nothing, and I heard 3 words.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God, those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences, big and little God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome to episode 74. Glad you're going to spend a little time with me here today. It's a great story of divine intervention. Brace for impact. Jane has just a doozy of a story. Before we go there, I want to talk about another impact those around us can have on us in the workplace, maybe in our homes, whatever the case may be, and talk about bracing for impact. During my radio days, there was a stretch of time where I knew that when I went into work, I was going to be greeted by someone who hated me, despised me. Me? Angelic Trapper? Yeah, and it really threw me. It just really threw me for a loop. I wasn't sure what to do with it. Why do I bring this up? Because I got an email this week from a new listener. I'm going to call this listener Sarah. And Sarah says that she just found the podcast, loves the beautiful stories, but she keeps hearing me say that God wants us to love everybody. And she says, how do you do that when people hate you? She's like, I have a couple of women in a work situation who obviously despise me. She thinks it's for racial reasons. She says they make fun of the way I walk and talk. And somebody at work says I should sue the company. I don't want to do that. But how do you love somebody who despises you? It's a great question. It's a question that a lot of people come up with in some way, shape, or form during the course of life. Just like, what is wrong with that person? Why do they despise me? And as I say, in my work situation, it just took the feet out from under me. It affected my work. It affected how I did my work. I was thinking about it too often. My insecurities all came bubbling out of that. And it's like, what is this? How do I react to that? How do I love somebody who hates me? And obviously, forgiveness is part of the process, right? Love and forgiveness do dance together. They never come solo. They do come together. Love and forgiveness. And that doesn't mean you condone the activity. You know, we look at Jesus and we see him on the cross. One of the things he is not quoted as saying is, I expect an apology around here. Hey, I want to hear I'm sorry, and I want you, and you better mean it. Yep. No, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgive them for and I went to that. I'll call the person I worked with. I'm going to call this person Sam. Okay, could be short for Samuel. Could be short for Samantha. Let's just call the individual Sam. Plain and simple. Forgive them. They just don't know what they're doing, and that is the case. That's always the case. But still, to get to that point, to be able to say in a work situation, any situation, there's just some things I don't have control over here. Matthew's Gospel, Matthew chapter 18. Peter goes to Jesus and says, how often are you supposed to forgive somebody? 7 times? And Jesus says 7. 7 times 77. In other words, it's an infinite number. You just keep forgiving. How do you do that? They don't deserve it. Lord knows they don't deserve it. You're just supposed to do it. Just supposed to do it. And as great as an example as Jesus is on the cross teaching us, I want to hear it from somebody else. I want to hear somebody else do something like that. I want to hear somebody else do that who isn't God and man, if you don't mind. Sorry, Jesus, you don't mind me saying that, And there's all kinds of examples that are so powerful. You can look at Pope John Paul II, who 1981, he gets shot. Multiple bullets put into his body. One almost takes him out. Somehow he miraculously lives. And what does he do? He publicly states he forgives the person who shot him, then goes to the jail, wants to meet the person and just to tell them face to face, I forgive you. That's pretty good. But there's even stronger ones than that. And that's the case where somebody you love is killed. How do you do then at forgiving? How do you do when somebody and these Amish stories keep bubbling up. There's a case where back in 2006, small town of Pennsylvania, this guy who I think he delivered milk to the Amish community. Anyway, he went nuts one day, and he went into the school with a gun, shoots 10 kids, 5 of them die. Then he shoots himself. And these Amish families were amazing. After burying their children, the next day, they go to the funeral of the shooter to console the widow. Could I do that? To console the widow. And then they start a fund drive to make sure she has enough money to get herself over the hump here since the breadwinner is now gone. Excuse me? How do you do that? That's amazing. That's amazing. When people hurt you like that, when people hurt you. I was listening to a talk by Bishop Robert Barron, and he talked about there's a martial arts technique called, is it Aikido? Aikido, I think it's Aikido, where the goal is not to hurt the other person. The other person's attacking you, and your job is to get out of the way, dodge, weave, push, pull, anything that puts your opponent on the ground, but don't hurt them. You're not trying to hurt them. You just want them not hurting you, and you're trying to put them on the ground. And so they keep coming at you, and you just keep pushing, moving, pulling, getting out of the way, but just putting them on the ground. What's the goal? The goal is to have the opponent laughing hysterically on the ground, that they can't get to you. They just can't get to you. And so they just start laughing. That is where I think I got to with Sam. To the point where, here, I don't know, it was strange how God answered the prayer. You want that person punished who's doing this to you, right? You want vengeance. Give me some vengeance, God. Come on, do something to Sam here, right? But that's not the godly way, and you got to get past that. You got to get past that. I want to do it the Jesus way. So I was praying to Jesus, God, do something with Sam. Does Jesus do anything with Sam? No, Jesus does something with me. Jesus went through this period of time where Jesus developed my backbone. Who am I? What am I? What is Sam? What's the big deal with Sam? Who cares? Somebody hates you and despises you. Big deal. Look at me. People spat at me. People trying to kill. Big deal. What's the big deal? Pray for those who persecute you. Pray for those who hate you. Anybody can love somebody who loves you, but when you can pray and love somebody that hates you and despises you, so you try to crawl into that, but then you keep going back to this Aikido thing of just put them on the ground without touching. You don't want to hurt any. You don't want anybody hurt. But Jesus built my backbone. I don't know how to put this. Where it's like just constantly reinforcing with me, who are you? What are you? What do you stand for? Are you with me? I am with you. And I felt this strength, these graces, these blessings in hating, not going that way. Bishop Robert Barron also talks about how, what is grace? Grace is steroids. It's like an athlete getting steroids. Nothing the athlete's doing. It's coming from an outside source. All you know is that you're stronger. Well, somehow I just kept feeling stronger and stronger to the point where when these moments would happen, this hate, this despising would bubble up, it became comical. It was weird. No longer was it taking my feet out. It became comical. It's like, Sam's up to it again. There's Sam again, there's Sam. And it became comical. I mean, there were stab wounds all over my back, and it became comical. Management even said at some point, I had heard that they were looking at getting rid of Sam, and I said, hey, my input, don't. Sam needs the job, and just, leave Sam alone. Sam's, and they did until they couldn't take it anymore. But Aikido, where you just, it gets to be comical. Sometimes that's not possible. I know that. Sometimes it's not funny. I think about Maximilian Kolbe, St. Maximilian Kolbe, World War II. He's in Auschwitz. He's a priest, and there's that moment when somebody escapes, and when somebody escapes, 10 people have to die. That's the deal here, guys. And they pick out 10 guys to die. And this one guy who was picked out goes, I have a wife, I have kids. That you don't, please, not me. And Maximilian Kolbe steps out of line, which should get him killed automatically. Walks up and says, "Take me." Okay. So the other guy got to live for a long time. And Maximilian Kolbe was one of the 10 who was put into a room to starve to death. And he kept telling the fellow inmates, don't hate the Nazis. Don't hate them. Don't hate them. Don't fall into that. Don't fall into that. Love them. Pray for them. They don't know what we know. And he would lead them in prayer, and he would lead them in song. They would hear these 10 guys singing praise, singing prayers. It's in the Gospel of Luke that Jesus reminds us to love our enemies, to do good things for those who hate us, to bless those who curse us. In the Gospel of Trapper, Aikido. Push him to the ground to make him laugh. Whatever works. Whatever works. I want to get back to this. I want to get back to this in a second here. But first, there's this, again, bracing for impact, a physical impact this time, with Jane.
Hello.
Well, how you doing, Miss Jane?
I am doing very well, Trapper. How are you doing today?
Several months ago, Jane came to one of my talks, and that kind of induced her, got her curious about the podcast, and that evoked a memory.
One of them had mentioned a miraculous miracle of a person that they had a vehicle that literally went through them, and the person didn't sustain any kind of injury. And you had some other podcasts that I listened to that also had that kind of similar theme, that people were either on the side of the road or something, and a vehicle went through them, or something of that nature. And honestly, when I heard that, I kind of stopped in my tracks, because the same thing happened to me several years ago. And I'll be honest, other than my husband, I've never told anybody of this experience.
Oh, good. It'll just be between us then.
Yeah, just between us, right.
No one's listening. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Well, and honestly, I didn't say anything to anybody because I didn't know if I was daydreaming. I didn't know if it was real. And honestly, I didn't think anybody would believe me. It was such an unusual feeling, but listening to your podcast, it kind of verified and justified that maybe I'm not the only person that this has happened to.
You're the fifth person I know
really
that has told me the story, and you'll be the fourth on the podcast. Yeah.
Well, and to be honest, I've never talked or heard anyone ever say that. I just had one of those oh my goodness moments. And what had happened is that I was on my way to visit my dad, and my dad lives about an hour from me. And that morning, my sister this is many years ago, my sister had called me that morning, and it was a Friday morning. And every Friday morning I go to visit, at the time I went to visit my mom and my dad. So this was just that kind of a morning. And my sister said, Jane, come. Pop's not, we called my dad Pop. Pop's not doing very well. And come as soon as you can today. So my father was in a nursing home and had been ill for several years. And it was probably around 9:30 in the morning, clear, normal fall day, on going to see my dad. Actually, it was 19 years ago this past weekend. And there's a point where you have to merge onto another highway. And these highways are kind of out in the country. So the roads are kind of narrow, and it's either one or two lanes. It's not like a metropolis kind of a deal at all. And I could honestly drive this in my sleep. I've driven back and forth to see my mom and dad hundreds of times. And on that day when I was driving, I was going to merge from one highway to the other, and I noticed in my rearview mirror that a semi was coming straight behind me from the highway that I was merging on. And there was no way, Trapper, that I could move over or speed up to miss this vehicle. And you know how you prepare yourself? I don't know if you've ever been in any kind of an accident or have seen one. You kind of just prepare yourself for the impact of getting hit.
So as you're merging onto this new highway, he's on that highway, yes?
He's on that highway. I mean, this semi was coming no less than 65 or 70 miles, and it was a 55-mile zone. And I just looked at myself and I thought, well, Jesus is calling me home. This is not good.
You were bracing for impact.
I was totally bracing for impact. It's just, when I was merging on, I just did not see it. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, it was coming, Trapper, and it was coming extremely fast. And like I said, I just braced myself for the impact. Then nothing. There was about 2 seconds of nothing, and I heard 3 words. And those 3 words were, not your time. There was no way I wasn't going to get run over. I literally blinked my eye and the semi was in front of me. It had to have occurred in less than 2 seconds. I physically pulled the car off to the side. I was shaking and it was total disbelief. I'm like, how did this just happen? It's like I was terrified and completely calm at the same time. I will never forget the incident and how I felt, but more importantly, I will never forget those 3 words, not your time. And that was the weekend that my father passed away.
Oh.
And I remember it so distinctly, but those words were so calming. They were not alarming. I always kind of equate it to, was that my guardian angel? And I'm a big advocate of guardian angels. So, and it was such a sobering, quiet voice. I've never heard it before that instant, and I've never heard it afterwards.
If you would say male or female, you would say?
Male.
Male. So you pull off to the left, to the right?
I pull off way over to the right, and I'm just sitting there shaking and trembling. And then all I could think of is, oh my gosh, I got to get home. My sister said, get home as soon as possible. And then that evening, my dad passed away.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And you said this was just your 19th anniversary for this?
Yes.
Wow.
That's why when you asked me to do this, it was like, wow.
Yeah, I should tell the audience that you and I had talked months ago now, right? Months ago.
Right.
And you had kind of hinted at the story, and I said, well, someday, I'll give you a buzz someday when I get the nudge. And, and that's when I got the nudge. Isn't that interesting? So,
yes.
So that must have been a little interesting, too, just when you got the text from me saying, hey, would you?
I about cried. Do you know my siblings have never heard this story, and I'm one of 5 children. I've never told anyone because I guess deep in my heart, I don't know if I ever had a platform to tell anyone or maybe an audience. And you do feel in your heart, is this real? But as I said, after listening to your podcast, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. There are other people that this has happened to. And you do start to question yourself, and you don't want to exaggerate or make it bigger maybe than it is. You don't want to, what's the right word? You don't want to elevate it to a level that it becomes fake. And it was very real to me.
Your credibility is the same as the others that I've talked to have had this. Anybody listening right now knows you're telling the God honest truth, as they say. Everyone knows. It's such an unusual feeling. And like I said, those words for 19 years, I've never forgotten those words. Not your time. People might think, well, you just had a lot on your mind. We all have a lot on our mind. And I get that. But it was real. As you're sitting there on the side of the road, going through that whole process, and it's like a truck, that truck should have hit me. I was bracing for the truck, and it didn't hit me. And so you're going through that, and then you're going through this, who the heck said not your time? What was that, right? Take me through that. Take me through do you immediately go, oh, guardian angel, or is it like, wait a minute, did I imagine that? Wait, I heard not your time.
No, I did. I know I didn't imagine it. I'm a real black and white person. I'm real German. I'm just like everything for me. Trust me, ask my family. I mean, did I question? I totally at that moment in time said thank you. And I knew it was an angel. I knew it. It was, I had not heard angels prior to this, but there was something in me that I just knew it.
Not your time. We all have a time.
I know.
God knows, right? God knows.
Absolutely.
How soon afterwards do you think, well, what am I supposed to do? Or I was just saved for something. Did you get that? Like, what was I being saved for? Any of that?
I still feel that way, that I've not done what I need to. I've not done his calling yet.
but that you're on the path. You don't think you're blocking anything, do you?
I don't think I'm blocking anything, but I don't think my time has happened yet.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
But you could be doing it. You could be fulfilling it right now.
I could be doing it as we speak. Absolutely. But I think we all have a purpose from God. And I think some of us take a little longer than others.
But that said, it doesn't have to be something colossal. It can be being wife, mother, professional.
I believe in being his steward. And I am. I will be. I try to be.
I feel drawn to ask you something because I recorded a monologue yesterday, and then everything kind of went flat.
Yeah.
And then I thought of you, and everything lit up again. I don't know how to explain this, but that's kind of what happened. And so, I don't know if your story in this episode is connected to what I was recording in my monologue. But I'm going to tell you the email that I got. And and tell me if it lights up anything for you, okay? Just tell me if it lights. And if it doesn't, that's fine. It's just... Anyway, I explained to Jane what you heard earlier in the podcast about this email from this woman that I'm calling Sarah. The work situation, these women who hate her for racial reasons, apparently, about what Scripture says about forgiveness, about Aikido and, not letting somebody get to you, basically. Building the backbone, all these things, right? Just to see if Jane had any insight. Maybe that was part of the reason why I was contacting her, why I felt pushed to contact. I didn't know. Is anything in what I told you ring anything with you or not? It may not have anything to do with you, but it may have something to do with another episode.
Has a lot to do with a daughter of mine called Sarah.
Did you? Yep. Are you serious?
I don't lie. Yeah. My daughter had a very, very bad episode in a work environment where she was bullied so hard that she ended up leaving the job and is in the process of really struggling with this right now.
Should she have left or should she have stayed?
She should have left.
Okay, so she did the right thing there.
She did the right thing for her. But it's having some other consequences in her personal life. So yes, especially when you said, let's say an email from Sarah. Yeah, it's a little overwhelming for my daughter right now.
What do we do with this? I don't know what to do with this. I don't know. And you don't have to say anything. I don't. I just think that's
interesting.
Yeah, real interesting, Ms. Jane.
And I think a lot of it is age related. Where are you on your journey in a work environment? Where are you on your journey of growth and development? I think it's easier for someone who's a little bit more seasoned in a work environment. My daughter's young, and words do hurt people, and words can cut people down. And being alienated in a work environment can be rough. So you're right. Your solution is the perfect solution, is to grow a backbone, to look at it comically, embrace them because they're the one with the problem, not you. And sometimes too, Trapper, you do need to walk away from a job. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just need to say, something, this is a toxic environment and I don't want to be a part of it, because that toxicity can creep into you. It can tear you down.
Was this somebody who was superior or kind of equal footing with your daughter?
Superior.
See that adds another level to it.
It adds another layer of anxiety, another layer of negativity. It was a bad situation. Very bad situation. And yes, I wish she would have had the wherewithal to have stood up for herself. But even in this environment, standing up for herself would not have been a personal gain.
Yeah, because that person wanted her gone.
That person wanted her gone. Bottom line. And she knew it. My daughter knew it. She goes, Mom, I can't fight it. I mean, she called HR. She did all the politically correct things, but the person wanted her gone. Yeah.
What was your advice along the way?
I wish she wouldn't have left the position until she had something else in her hand. I don't think she was ever going to make the situation better. I think the toxicity of the people that she was working with was a mindset and was a culture. I think it was the culture of where she was working, and I don't think her alone, she could change it. So I think leaving the position was the right thing for her.
Wow. You ever dealt with something like that? Go you ask.
Did I ever, you mean as far as being bullied in a work environment?
Yeah, just being hated. Just being despised because of who you are, what you represent, or just because you have size 8 shoes. I don't know, whatever.
Well, I took the advantage in my life to always elevating myself academically, so that I knew that if I put myself in an academic position, I would probably be the boss someday. And not that you're an untouchable person when you're the boss, but you have a tendency to get a little less harassment. In my very, very early days of what I did, yes, I was harassed. Yes, I was made fun of. But you know what? I just did not let it get to my skin. I'm like I said, I'm 1 out of 5 kids. I got beat up and pushed around my whole life by my siblings. So for me, it wasn't a big deal. I just was like, yeah, I'm being bullied. So what? I just never let it penetrate my inner core. I always protect my inner core, my inner person. So no, I can honestly say I probably didn't let it, and those kind of things just didn't get to me.
What about in your daughter Sarah's case?
Mm-hmm.
Then you get to that element, okay, someone did her wrong. I mean, someone did her
I
harm.
know.
And just, it's funny, I'm not kidding. In the email, it was, coworkers have advised me to sue the company. So she probably went through that too, that whole, let's take it under, we can do this legally. Okay, so she didn't do that. And then you get to, she's been battered, she's been bruised, she left her work, damage has been done. And now you're sitting there going, and I'm supposed to forgive this person?
Yes.
How's she doing with that one?
Not well.
It's tough.
It's very tough. And I've always taught my kids, I go, something, pray for people, because they're having a worse day than you if they're attacking you.
Yeah.
I go, you don't, and I always use the expression at work and around other people, you don't know what people are dealing with, and you don't.
And you don't know where they've been. You don't know you don't know what happened to them as a kid. You just, we talked about that last week. You don't know what they've been through. You don't.
You don't know. You don't. You don't know where they've been. You don't know where they've been. You just don't. You don't know what led them to attack you. And like you said, having a backbone and basically building yourself up is the best thing to do.
Yeah, with the help of Jesus. It's pretty hard to do it otherwise. Yeah.
Always with the help of Jesus. Always put him number one. And he'll give you the path. And that's the answer. Not easy.
Because there are so many there are some scary things that God has said about forgiveness. The Our Father, forgive me as I forgive others. That's huge. In other words, I am saying, as I do this, you do it to me. Ouch. I mean, that's how you can just cream yourself with that one.
Yep. It's my favorite prayer.
It's the best.
If you really, it's the only one that matters in my world. If you really listen to the words, you're going to be okay. He's not going to forgive you. If you don't forgive, come on, then you're kind of not doing the right thing. I
read a book about a woman who had been this had to do with I can't remember her name, when the Hutus and the Tutsis were fighting each other, and her family had been literally just macheted to death, and she couldn't forgive. She couldn't forgive, and so when she was praying, she prayed all these rosaries every day, and suddenly she realized she was condemning herself by the Our Father. You're saying, 5 of those in a rosary. And so she started jumping over that line.
Wow.
Yeah, she was going through these these contortions to jump over the line of forgive me as I forgive those who trespass against me. And then she realized, I don't think God's approving of that. And she finally got to forgiveness. She finally got there, but not easy. And I think God,
look what he did for us.
Yeah. I think you go right to the cross.
Yes.
He didn't say, hey, I expect an apology out of you guys.
Yeah, he didn't go look to the right, look to the left, see who you like better. No.
Yeah.
It's total forgive. You either forgive or you don't. Well, I forget where I read somewhere that forgiveness is the number one thing that does not come natural to any human being. It's not innate. You have to be taught how to forgive.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow.
It's true, isn't it? I mean, it's just the natural thing is I'm going to get back at you, and there's vengeance
vengeance. Absolutely.
It's natural.
It's a natural thing is to attack. It takes a lot of life to calm down that and to be to have that sense of forgiveness. It's rough. I've dealt with it in my own life, and I'm sure you have as well.
I think we should pray for all the Sarahs of the world.
I would appreciate prayer for my Sarah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I will take that. Best gift ever.
Yeah. No, your daughter's listening to this, and she's going to get through this.
I hope so. I pray every day for them both. Yeah. I do. Mm-hmm. That's my mission in life, is to pray.
Yeah. Thanks, Jane. And we do all pray for you and your family. What's our takeaway today? What did God just say in this episode? Well, going back to the 18-wheeler, and here it comes in the rearview mirror, and you're about ready to get crushed, and then not your time. It just reminds us again of fulfilling the purpose that God gave to us. And we all were given one. We all are in the midst of one. We're all trying to find it, whatever it is. But I will note that you're still here. Therefore, you are still fulfilling your purpose or looking for that purpose, staying connected to God. So obviously, Jane is in the bubble, as I say, and that's our job, to be in the bubble and fulfill our purpose. And when time's up, time's up. But we're all still here, so our time's not up. And the other part about bracing for the impact of the onslaught of people on this earth who they don't know. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. And just going back again to Luke chapter 6, verse 27. Pray for, love your enemies. Love your enemies. This does not mean that they're your best buddy. It doesn't mean you condone what they do. It doesn't mean you have to hang out with them. As far as I know, Jesus, after the resurrection, did not find the Roman soldiers and say, hey, let's go get a beer. I don't think so. But from the cross, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing, So they don't have to be our chums. We don't even have to like them, but we have to love them and not have any ill will for anyone. We have to want it. We have to want to be Christ-like. We have to want it. Thank you so much for sharing this episode with me and sharing it with others. You can go to episode 74 and you can tell me your story. You have one? If you go to episode 74 of touchedbyheaven.net, there's also a link to Patreon. If you would like to join others who are helping make this happen on a weekly basis of supporting what my wife, Beth, and I do, then Patreon's the way to do it. Or you can go directly to patreon.com. Just look for Trapper Jack. And thank you so much in advance for the support you are giving us. Thank you. All right, I'll see you next week. But don't forget, give me your story at touchedbyheaven.net, okay? Okay, thank you. And I'll see you next week here at Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.